Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, Ruji Media. I'm your host, Richard Morla. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and we are going to continue in our series of Photoshop Beginners to Intermediate. All right, here we are inside Photoshop, as you can see here, and in Photoshop, I selected this image here. As I said in the previous video, if you're following along this series here, you will have the links below this video where you can download this image and follow along. All right, now when we continue in our series of Photoshop Beginner to Intermediate, all what we're gonna do here is continue with the selections. And now what we are going to do with the selection, in the previous one, we already talked about this basic selection tool, which is the rectangular marquee tool, elliptical marquee tool, single row marquee tool, and single column marquee tool. Now we're gonna move on and we're gonna go to the next one. And this one that we're gonna be talking about is gonna be the Polygonal Lasso tool. And this is a very interesting tool. You remember in the previous episode that we were talking that every tool here has the property right here where you can affect how the selection is going to be. For instance, this one right now has a feather of 50%. I'm not interested on 50%. We're gonna click 0 here. There you go. And we are going to remove these stairs or these area here. We're going to remove the sky and also those three, and we're gonna set it, let's say, on a solid background. How do we do that? You remember we click here on the down in the background image here. We're going to create a new layer right here and we're gonna name it. Let's call it, we're gonna call it solid. Yeah, solid color. There you go. And now we're going to set a color for this layer. How do we do that? We're gonna go here. If you remember from the previous episode, this is the color picker. We're gonna select the color and let's select a nice bluish color like so. There you go. And now this is your foreground color. This is your background color. If I press X, now I switch to my foreground color and now the color went to the background. In the previous one, I was also letting you know the shortcut, which is Alt backspace for the foreground color. Now let's use the opposite. Let's use the background color. And for that one is Control backspace. All right, now that you know that, we're gonna press here with our layer selected, press Control backspace, and now you can see here, it is the color that we have chosen here. Nothing happened yet, but that's all right. Let me zoom a little bit my image. And now I'm gonna start making the selection. This tool here, right here, the Polygonal Lasso tool, work as it says, Polygonal Lasso tool. It's like a magnetic kind of lasso tool. You will see in a moment. If I click here and I drag, you can see I can drag this everywhere I want, but until I don't click, that selection or that line won't stick anywhere. You see, as long as I'm clicking, that selection is going to be done, and I have to come to the point of where I started. Now, in order to make this a selection, I have to go back to where I started and join it. As you can see now, that is a weird mumble jumbo selection there. All right, that's not what we want. So let's press Control D to deselect. And now let's make a proper selection to remove that sky. How do we do that? Very simple. We're gonna select here, then here, 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 and there. And I'm making a rough selection here because we have more selection tool to cover, and I want to cover each one of the other one. So there you go. And this is a scenario which this tool is very, very, very useful. Like you can see here. So this tool would be the most ideal one for you to remove a sky. So now you have that. We're gonna make a point right here. Remember, we're gonna come to the point where we started, and there you go. Now we have our selection. Let's do that again. Let's start from here, and we're gonna click here, and there you can see that I didn't make a perfect selection there, but that's all right, because I know that you from home will do it a nice selection, better than the one I did. And you will share it, and you will be very happy once you know how to remove that sky there. So you want to be careful making your selection. I'm making a rough selection here. All I want is to show you how you work with this tool. As you can see, there you go. Boom. Let's make another point down there. Boom, boom, and boom. There you go. Now we properly have selected the sky. Now what we want to do is select the layer here of our image. If I press Ctrl J, you can see that the only thing on this image, if I press Alt and click on the eye here, is only the sky that will be visible, and that's not what we want. So let's press Ctrl Z a few times. Let's go Ctrl G. All right. And now what I want to do is press Ctrl Shift I. Ctrl Shift I, what it does, inverts your selection. So what we want to select is actually the staircase. We don't want to select the sky, even though that's what we want to remove. We want to preserve the stairs. So you have to invert your selection. Yeah? All right. Hopefully you understood. So now what I'm going to do is Ctrl J. Oops. I'm going to press Ctrl J. And now if I turn off this layer, voila. Now you can see that the solid color now is visible in the background. And now we successfully keep this here. For instance, you can add replace the sky here and make a whole sky different here, and you can remove these leaves here and then leave it and create a very interesting image. So this is the way Polygonal Lasso tool work, and if you remember, every tool, every selection you do, now that you have this selection, remember you have here this is the toolbar, and this is your option here, the property toolbar. So you remember, if you go here in your option panel, select, you go to modify, and in the previous video I explained what each option do. So also here you have here the property tools, as you can see here, where you can also affect that, and that was explained. So as you can see here, that was once again the Polygonal Lasso tool. That's how it works. That's the principle. Now let's do something with another tool, and that's gonna be the Lasso tool. The Lasso tool allows you to do a rough selection, and it make it like quicker, you know, like you don't have to complicate very much. So very simple. Let's duplicate our image here. You remember how to do that? Correct. Ctrl J. Now if we press in the background and we go to the plus sign here, right here, new layer, and now you remember how we can create a fill color. For this one, I wanted white, and if you remember right here, we have white exactly where we want it, in the foreground color. So how do you do that? To fill that layer, empty layer, remember that in order to do that, you press Alt, backspace, and now it's filled with white. Now we're gonna pick our Lasso tool from here, with the shortcut L, and if you press Shift L, you're going to toggle across this area here of the selection. All right, now in the Lasso tool, look at this. I just make a rough selection like so, and I already have a selection here. It's like a kind of a free selection tool. Now I have that because I want to extract this and I want to create some, I don't know, mysterious or kind of artistic image. All I have to do is click here, now that I have my selection in the image, Ctrl J, and now I turn off the background image, and look, boom. Now we have our eye right there in that. Now if I press E for eraser tool, and I can be more creative here. Like I can start, you know, erasing this here. Let's harness. What I did was right click, and the property will come of that, which I will explain later on also. Harness 0% with the right click, and now I'm going to paint here. I also put here the flow and opacity, which I explained in previous videos as well of this series. So here you are, flow, 18%, and I'm going to paint here, just like so, to create the illusion that it's just coming out of the white background, or somebody is looking at you from the other side, you know, or something like that, like a mystical kind of look. There you go. Now we have it. All right, and that's it for Lasso. And again, you know, with your Lasso tool, when you make a selection, like for instance, if I make a selection here, roughly around this here, that's it. Now I have here in my property tool bar all the options that I have with the rest of them. And also if I go to select, modify, I also have the same options as I already explained with the other tools. So that's actually how the Lasso tool works. Now that you understand that, we're gonna move to the next one. And the next one here that we have, this one, pay attention a bit because this one is a little bit trickier. Okay, it's a little bit trickier, and I'm gonna be honest with you, many people quit using this tool. They'd rather prefer to use a more manageable tool. Probably more complicated, but more manageable, such as the paint tool. Why? Because this tool is like kind of a special. It behaves very weird, but once you understand how to behave, you will understand also when is the best time to use it. Why? Because sometimes you make it selections like this one here. As you can see, we have this long area here, but you have these little curves here, you know, and yeah, you can pick the pen tool and do it, or probably you can use the marquee tool and refine the selection, feather the selection, and smooth the selection, and you will, you know, get rid of that corners that normally the marquee selection tool has, and you can make it oval, but that's a lot of work. There are other tools for that. So how do we operate with this tool? So pay attention because it's gonna be very interesting. So now I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna pick here my magnetic lasso tool. Pay attention on this one. Look, this tool here, when I click on it and I go like that, look, I'm not clicking anywhere, I'm just moving the mouse and it's creating these points as you can see here. See, and when I return to the point, now I have a selection. But it's very tricky to control those little points that you have there. But now I'm gonna press Control D. Now if I select here, see, and I want to make a straight selection. Look, if I try to make a straight selection here, it's not possible. See, it creates this curve that you can see there, like that little wave there. So how in the world I made this selection behave? Okay, we're gonna go there. If I want to make a straight selection there, we already with this tool, and then come here and make those little curvy there. What I do, I make a point here, make another one there, and I press Alt. When I press Alt, I make another point and see that now it becomes a polygonal lasso tool. Meaning now you can make, look, now as long as I'm pressing Alt, it's not making those little uncomfortable little point that don't behave. Look, now I click here. There you go. Now I release Alt, make another point, and now it goes back to the original tool. Look, now I'm making those points right there and right here. Now I press Alt, make another point, and now I have my polygonal and I can go all the way down. There you go. And now I'm going to release, press a space to move up my image, as you can see, release a space, and now I'm going to press Alt again, and I'm gonna come here till right there. I have my long selection, release Alt, make a point, and now I drag and click to make those points. No, now I want to make a long selection again. Be careful. Press Alt, make a point, and now drag all the way. Now that you know the mechanic of how to work, so now we are going to be doing it, all right? So now that you know the mechanic, I'm gonna release here, put it there, There with my space tool, I can create and move my selection. Now there you go, another one here, there, and there. And that's how you work with this tool. Now, as you can see here, I have my selection done here, and I'm going to make a contract this selection by 1 pixel. Remember where to go to do that? If you want to make your selection a little bit smaller, you go to Select, Modify, Contract. Now, by 1 pixel, I will make my selection a little bit smaller to make sure I have a great selection. And now what I'm going to do is Control J. And look at that. Boom. I have perfectly selected this Royal Mail or whatever this is. And now I can use it as I would love to. So now that you understand how this tool works, remember, you have all the choices to change it as the rest. Now let's move on. Now we're gonna go here to the next one. And this one here, it is no more, no less for one of the most hated selection tool. And which one is that? And that one is the Magic Wand tool. Why? Because normally it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But if you understand how to work, that's why I'm making each selection and I'm choosing the type of images that those selection tools work the best. If you practice alone here and you take time to understand this, when you see an image and you want to make a selection, you will know what's the best tool to use. So on this one here, if I click on it, look, it's supposed to select all these here, everything that is blue. But if I select here, it's supposed to select everything here. But that's not exactly how this tool works. How does it work? So very simple. Now, if I go here and I say an average, and I say 1 point sample, look at that, 1 point sample. And now I have tolerance of 32. I'm choosing here, the tolerance of the selection is gonna be, for instance, Control D. There you go. I'm gonna pick here, I don't know, a value of 5%. Hit enter and click. Now you can see that the tolerance of that selection of the range is gonna be 5%, and this is all I get. Now, Control D, if I set this to 1 and I click, well, that's all I get here, as you can see. And it doesn't matter how many times I click or drag, that's all I'm gonna get. So you have anti-alias, it's how the selection will be, contiguous, and you have layer, samples of layer. On later episodes, I will be talking more about those choices. But for the moment, now if you press here 32, which is a good value, and we click here, now you can see still I don't have what I'm looking for. But if I go here to select and I'm gonna go similar, look what happened now. Boom, now I have all the blue area selected. Isn't that perfect? That's magic. Because if you observe, why when I say similar? Because I pick a color. And now to that color, I'm saying everything that is similar to this tonal range of that color, please pick it. And that's exactly how this tool behaves. So now that you understand that, let's Control Z, and now we are here. But if I click grow, select, grow, you can see the selection grow, but it didn't select the missing part. So remember that, grow to expand your selection, to grow your selection around certain area. And you have the other one here, as you can see, which is similar, and that is when you want to pick a similar tonal range of a color or value. So if I press here, similar, boom, now I have it. And the same, Control J. Oops, we have to Control Shift I to invert our selection. Now I'm gonna press Control J, and you can see, boom, our selection. I remove the sky, and now I can add here whatever I want. All right, now we're gonna move to the next one here. And this one is the second to the last of the selection, and this is the famous quick selection tool. It's very good when you have luminosity value like so, like blown out details, etc. How do we do that? So very simple. On this one, you drag. Look at that. If I drag here, boom, I already have my selection done. But when you're working with hair, you also want to be careful how you're selecting those. So what are we gonna do here for this selection is select and mask. That's something that you have with this tool. Now, when I go here, select and mask, and now I'm gonna make my brush size smaller by pressing Alt and dragging to the right or dragging to the left. You can make it bigger or you can make it smaller. If you press up, that's your hardness. If you press down, you can make it harder. So let's make it roughly about 35% or so, and about this side. And now here, this allow you to add to your selection. These allow you here, as you can see, to bring back, and we don't want that. Here, you can reselect, but then here we can refine our selection. Let's do that, refine that selection. That's what we want. There you go. Control C, let's make it smaller and let's just walk around here. There you go. And now that I refine my selection, I'm gonna click OK, and now I have it there. And now what I'm going to do is to duplicate, remove my layer, and I'm going to duplicate, pressing again, Control J. Now I'm gonna press the B tool, and now I'm gonna drag this guy to the right. There you go, to make a nice effect. And this layer that I just duplicated, I'm gonna drag it to the previous one. And now it looks like he's behind. But we have a little problem here with the hair, as you can see. Like, we need more work for that hair over there because now it looks funky right there. There's a lot of way to work around that, but that is out of the scope of this tutorial. But now you know how to use this tool and where to modify your selection, which basically you do the same as in the previous one. It's like refining your selections, like smoothing, expanding, feathering, and so on and so forth. All right, now if I go here, why I selected this image is because on this image here, we have hard edges and soft edges. And I wanted to use it as an example because now that I'm gonna pick this tool, once again, where it is, right here. If I try to select this whole dog here so that you can see that not one tool will work in all kind of images, and now that you know almost all of them, you will know which one to use when. So here, this one here, as you can see here, I'm trying to select, oops, I got lost. Look at that. Now I cannot select the feet of the dogs. Why? It's selecting everything. Because when you have soft edges, like this image right here, the tool behaves very different. So in this case, what it would be the best tool to use across there, with those little curvy lines, etc. Well, you can use different tools such as the one we already explained, this one here, Polygonal, the Lasso, the magnetic. But if I use the Lasso tool here, now I have a free selection. Look at that. Now I can do the selection of the little doggy right there and come carefully here and so on. And here you go, and the little doggy right there and here. And you can see now how I am selecting the little doggy with this free selection tool. There you go. And now I made a perfect selection. It needs more work, but now you know where to go in order for you to work on that selection, refine it, to work it and make it tune exactly as you want and precise in order for you to make a great selection. Control D, and now the final one of all is one very interesting. For this one, you need to press V or B, not V, but B. B for brush. Now here you have the brush, which is right there. If I click B, and now I have opacity 100%, flow 100%. Now you see this icon right there? If I press that icon, look that this turned blue. Look what happened now. Also here in my color picker turns into two color, black and white. Why? Because when I press now, you can see that I'm painting blue. And what happened on those areas that I'm painting blue? Look what happened. If I press back that button, that turns into a selection. Isn't that amazing? That is great. I'll tell you why. Because now that we press Control D, and I want to paint my dog because I think, painting is the thing for me. And I prefer to paint rather than to make a selection. So I can start painting here. As you can see, right there. And let's make now a rough painting here, just for the sake of demonstration. Demonstration or something like that. Yeah, my English. What happened, Richard, with your English? The great thing is we can increase the brush size, as I already told you. Remember, pressing Alt and dragging either to the right or the left. All right, so here we are choosing this beautiful doggy. All right, there you go. And look at that. Now we have this selection around the dog. All right. And yeah, perfect. We have the dog selected. Why we have it selected? I just see blue there. Well, because now I press back there and boom, I have a selection of the dog. And again, I can refine this selection now in the tool panel that I show you, like right here in select. I can grow, similar, and modify border, smooth, span, contract, and feather. So that is amazing. But all right, Richard, but I like it, but I just don't feel like that blue color is great for me. So what should I do? Well, very simple. If you double click here, see, double click, 1, 2. Now you have the color option here and opacity 50%. If I press here, now I can say I want it red. You want to keep opacity most of the time 50%. That depends on the projects that you might be working. Click OK. And now when I paint, I have to click again. And now when I paint, look at that. Now I'm painting red. And you can choose any color that you want. And to make the selection, again, press the button here, and there you have your selection. All right, guys, that's it for today's selections. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by the same name, Ruji Media. Follow me here on YouTube. Hit the ring bell so that you receive a notification of this great series that I'm doing for people who doesn't know Photoshop. Because maybe you want to learn how to do a thumbnail, whatever you want to learn, you will learn it here in Ruji Media with your host, Richard Morla. Once again, thank you very much for sticking with me here all this time and watching my tutorial. So that's it for me, guys. See you on the next one.